class, welcome to today's segment, which is an introduction to our reading module. Well, in this segment, we are going to give a detailed description of what the IELTS listening exam entails and some major key things to note. I shall be pointing out key points, and then I'm going to be discussing it so that we are able to understand each point in detail. So let us get right into it. The reading tests your ability to comprehend information in written form and your ability to be able to sieve out answers from passages. As you all know, the reading test is in form of passages. So you are given a passage with, say, one passage has maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs in academic tests, and in general test maybe one passage has maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs, and then you are presented with questions, and then you're supposed to sieve out answers to these questions from the paragraphs you've been given. So basically, the reading tests your ability to sieve out answers from passages. This test lasts for 60 minutes and there is no time to transfer answers. Please note, there is no additional time to transfer answers. Well, the reading test lasts for 60 minutes, which is 1 hour. And it lasts for exactly 1 hour. So there is no time like previously in listening, whereby if you are doing the paper-based exam, you are given 10 minutes to transfer answers and 2 minutes if you are doing the computer-based to peruse your answers. For reading, there is exactly 60 minutes. So in those 60 minutes, you're supposed to answer your questions, confirm that read your questions, write the correct answers, confirm those answers in exactly 60 minutes. So please note this and do not get caught up with time. Practice, practice, practice. This ensures that you know which strategy works best for you, and you are also able to note your stronghold and weak points. Please practice. I think the word practice is our key word in IELTS examinations, because without practice, then you'll not be able to identify any weak points or strong points. So please guys, practice is everything in the IELTS examination, no matter the module. So please, practice, practice, practice. As we all know, practice makes perfect. So, I repeat, practice makes perfect. So, you'll have to practice your reading module over and over again so that you can familiarize with your strong and weak points, the question types which you might struggle in. You also get to know the layout of questions. You also get to increase the speed in which you are able to sieve out answers from passages, because we also know that speed is key in IELTS. In any module of IELTS, speed is key. So the faster you're able to identify the answer from a passage, the faster you'll be able to move on to the next passage, and the faster you'll be able to complete your examination. The secret to the reading module is ensure you can always directly point out your answer in the passage and explain how that's the right answer. Guys, if there's anything you're going to get in this reading module, is this secret. This is my proven and tested secret in the reading module. For any answer that you place as the answer, ensure that you are able to go to your passage and directly point out that the reason I've chosen this as the answer is because in the passage they have said this and this and this, and you are able to underline your answer from the passage. I repeat, you are able to underline your answer from your passage. This is the only secret in reading module. As long as I can ask you as your tutor. So, for example, you're called Anne or Alex. So, Anne, why have you placed this as the answer to number 1? And then you tell me, Laura, from the passage, here is this answer. That's the only secret in reading. So guys, any answer you place in your reading test, ensure you can point out directly, not indirectly, because one thing about the reading module, the passage does not speak in tongues. It is directly. The answer is usually there directly. So I do not want to hear of a case whereby you are telling me, I think this is the answer. You should always be sure of your answer. And why should you always be sure? This is because your answer, you can directly point it out in your passage. Not figuratively, not under assumption. Guys, and if you take note of this secret, I guarantee you, you can never fail in reading. This is the key secret. Okay. Paraphrasing, keywords, synonyms are the magic words in reading. So, as I had said, that the key in reading is pointing out your answers from your passage. But sometimes your answers can be paraphrased, but this does not mean that they are not clear and direct. They are still clear and direct, but they are just paraphrased, or maybe a synonym has been used, but it's still the direct answer. So the answer in the passage can be either paraphrased, a synonym has been used either in the passage or in the question. Keywords are also the magic words. This is because as you are directly pointing out the answer in the passage, you are also required to be able to identify the keyword both in the question and in your answer. So for example, you've chosen A as your answer. Then what you are required to do is, first of all, come to the passage and underline why A is your answer. In addition, you're supposed to pick out the keyword in your question and the keyword in your answer in the paragraph. So, for example, you tell me, Laura, I've chosen A as my answer. This is because A has maybe something like camp. My keyword in my question is camp, and my keyword in my answer in the passage is also camp. We are going to be able to easily explain this in an example in our live sessions, but I'm just giving you a rough idea. Keywords, you're underlining your keyword in your question, your keyword in your passage, and your keyword in your answer. Those three should collaborate. There's no way in your question there's a keyword such as Brookhouse School, but in your answer I can't see anything such as Brookhouse, and also in the passage there's nothing like Brookhouse. Like, so I'll be asking you, where have you obtained your Brookhouse answer? For example, you've chosen Brookhouse as your answer. This is just a vague example. But in your question, I can't see anything like Brook House, and in the passage I can't see anything like Brook House, or there's something like Brook House but not in relation to what the question was asking. So this still goes back to our point whereby you can directly explain your answer from the passage, and you can directly point out your answer from the passage and clearly explain why that's the answer. That's all these points just go back to the one secret that we've already talked about. Pointing out your answers in the passage and being able to explain them. I think I'll repeat this over 1,000 times in this module, but this is the only secret. 0 blind guesses. This still rotates to our previous point. In reading, there should be 0 blind guesses. Why do I say 0 blind guesses? In comparison to the listening test, sometimes in listening, by mistake, you might say the audio might have gone too fast, and then maybe you didn't get the answer to something. So you might be forced to just write an answer you think is correct. It isn't exactly a guess, but you think it's correct. So in a way, you've kind of guessed the answer because you can't rewind the audio, so you are forced to guess. But in reading, your test is there. In reading, there's no, you can rewind, you can go back to the first passage, you can even start with the second passage, you can start with the third passage. There's no restriction. So here, there's no need to guess because your passage is right there. And the answers to your questions are right there. So there's absolutely no reason for you to guess. So in reading, I expect 0 blind guesses because your answer is right there in your passage. So why should you be guessing? Yes. Academic test has a lower band score as compared to general test. So this means that for academic reading band scores, the band scores are a bit lower and vice versa. This means that a 37 out of 40 in reading, in academic reading, and a 37 out of 40 in general reading test are going to have different band scores. For academic, a 37 might be a band 8.5, and a 37 in general might be a band 8. You see what I mean? I'm going to list the band scores in the description box. Like, I'm going to list the range from 39 to 40, band 9, etc., both for academic and general. So this is something very important to note, that for general, the scores must be higher as compared to academic for the same band score. This does not mean that general is easier or academic is harder. Well, it might mean that, but I don't want you to have any laxity just because you are doing general or academic. Everybody should study in the same standard, and you should put your level best if you're doing academic or if you're doing general. Get what I mean? So, but the band scores are a bit different. I'll list them down in the description box. One of the most challenging question type in reading module is true, false, not given. So, something very important to note that has been observed over many students' test scores, and I've also observed it at a personal level, is that every student should take note of true, false, and not given type of questions. This is because these questions can be a little bit tricky, but with my guidance, I'm sure all of you are going to understand this type of questions and will be able to perform really well. Yes, and these types of questions actually have the most use of our secret. True, false, not given, you should always be able to point out why an answer is true exactly from the passage, why an answer is false exactly from the passage, and why the answer is not given exactly from the passage. So I saw it important to put this point in the introduction part so as to ensure that you are aware that this is a question type that might be challenging, and I'll repeat this in the coming videos, but I still saw it wise to place it here. Easier question type, complete sentences. This completing the sentence is one of the easier question types. In this question type, you should aim to score everything. This is because it's so completing a sentence in reading is so easy because you are literally reading a point in your passage and filling in the gap in your question. It's so easy, so you should aim to score everything in this question type. Word count and speed reading are very key. It takes time to master, but with practice, you are going to be all right. So, in reading module, there's also instructions of required word count in your answer. So, your section might require you to have not more than 2 words as the answer. So, always take note of the instructions of each passage or each section. If you don't do this, then you're going to automatically fail even if you had the correct answer. Speed is also very, very key in reading. As I told you, the exam lasts for only 1 hour, so you do not want to have a scenario whereby in that 1 hour you have a whole passage not read or 10 questions not answered. So speed reading is key, and answering correctly is also key. So you should be able to read the passage first, answer the questions first, but also answer them correctly. But this is something that can be easily attained with practice. So practice. In practice, you'll be able to understand different question types. You'll be able to understand the question structures and how to answer them before the main exams. You'll also be able to identify your strong and weak points. You'll be able to learn how to save time during the test so that you do not spend time in figuring out different question structures and how to answer them. So while practicing, you'll be able to encounter the different question types in reading tests. You'll also be able to keenly identify your strong question types and your weak question types. The question types you easily perform well in, and the question types you are lagging behind in. And by the time it comes for you to do your actual exam, you'll be very comfortable in all question types, and you'll be able to attain your highest band score. After reading the question, do not peruse looking for the answer. Ensure you actually read the passage, because that makes you get the answer faster, as the answer sometimes is usually paraphrased or has a synonym. So a mistake that I see most students do is once they've read the question, instead of going to the passage and reading the passage step by step, they quickly peruse through the passage. And with perusing through the passage, you might easily miss the answer. Why do I say so? This is because sometimes the question has used a synonym. So a certain keyword is synonymed in the passage, but in the question they've used a different word, but it's the same thing. So if you quickly peruse, you might miss the answer, and then this will lead you to read the passage all over again. Instead, you should just read the passage. Always start from the top. If you've read a question, start from the top, read that passage slowly by slowly, ensuring that in each sentence there's not the answer to that question. And then you'll realize by the time you come to the end of those questions, you'll have already mastered your passage, and even when you see a question, you'll remember that I think I have a rough idea to where the answer to this question is, because from the beginning of the questions you've been carefully reading the passage, and as you carefully read the passage, you are understanding the passage and you are memorizing the passage. So by the time you come to the end of the questions, or 3/4 of the questions, or even half of the questions, you'll have a very good idea of where the answers to your question are. And even if you have a good idea of where the answers are, you still do not peruse through the passage. You go to where you think the answer is and you begin reading. Not perusing, reading. You read, you say that in this sentence, there's no the answer to that question. You go to the next sentence until you arrive to the answer to that specific question. You repeat this process for the whole questions. Okay. NB, students should practice getting the correct answers first, then after that, practice getting them on time. What does this mean? As you begin practicing for your reading tests, you should first practice getting the correct answers. This will enable you to familiarize with the question types, identify your weak and strong points. Even if in your first 4 to 5 practice tests, you'll take a while, maybe even more than an hour, to answer all the correct answers. At least you'll be able to know how the reading test is structured. And then when you're able to get the correct answers, then you'll proceed to working on your timing. I hope you've understood. First, we are going to practice getting the correct answers, and then after that, we practice getting the correct answers on time. Got me? So that will be our strategy. Strategy number 1, pointing out the answer in your passage and being able to explain why that is the answer. Number 2, getting the correct answer, and then after that, getting the correct answer on time. So those are our 2 strategies in the reading module. Well, in this module, our aim is a band 8 and above. So a band 8, a band 8.5, and even a band 9, which is very attainable. I repeat, I'm going to list down the different band scores for IELTS Reading Academic and IELTS Reading General. And so if you're doing General, you'll be able to know what scores are required of you to attain a band 8. And if you're doing Academic, what score is required of you to attain a band 8 and above. So So guys, we've come to the end of our introduction module, and yes, see you in our next class, which will be the main content of the reading module. Hope you enjoyed, and bye.